Okay, sorry about that. A potpourri of interesting cases. As we have said, that clinical evaluation and with the modern armamentarium, one should use whatever modality is available, particularly things like ASOCT. But a very detailed and thorough clinical evaluation, customized investigations, and surgical planning. And whenever you see a patient, don't forget that there will be systemic diseases and there's comorbidity and then medical management accordingly. The medical, surgical, and the rehabilitative therapy will have to remember the principles. And again, regarding topical and systemic therapy, don't forget that one has to cover antimicrobials. And the very fact that you have an epithelial defect means that even normal commensals are going to invade. So even if it is a sterile ulcer and you've seen it fresh, you're pretty sure that it is very neat and clean, you may like to give an antibiotic coverage while you're undergoing the investigations, such as moxifloxacin or preservative-free medication, which is moxifloxacin. Otherwise, one can use chloramphenicol eye drops, azithromycin, just so that in the process of healing, the patient doesn't land up with a infective complication. And systemic therapy, again, all the principles that have been covered so far. And surgical principles reinforce and support. And here you have a consideration of patch versus a full graft. And this is again important to consider. It may look as if it's very challenging and you decide to change the whole cornea. But again, I would, as Dr. Lomi very nicely showed in that case, try to avoid doing a full thickness, full limbus to limbus graft if the central cornea is not affected. It may look as if it's not going to work, but it often does, and you can always plan further therapy later on. The important thing is to stabilize the melted part of the cornea. And so there is thinning, there is a melt, perforation, and desmetocele. There are various stages, and use of ASOCT and other imaging modalities are important to help you to, in decision making. So here we have one example. This patient was 45-year-old. He had come with his bilateral involvement. His vision was 5 by 60 in one eye and just hand movements close to face in the other. On questioning, there was a history of high risk behavior and he was a chronic alcoholic. This is what his eyes looked like. They had iris nodules, pupillary membrane, evidence of healed uveitis, and he was aphakic. And the left eye, you could see the associated scleritis and a PUK which has perforated. So he had a PUK which has perforated in one eye, and he had a necrotizing scleritis, and he had aphakia when he had no history of trauma and no history of any previous surgery. So it was a bilateral disease. There was scleritis, there was anterior uveitis, and aphakia. So we sent him for a systemic evaluation, and it was detected to have a genital ulcer which was single oval shaped, supposedly painless and indurated. Ultrasound showed posteriorly dislocated crystalline lens in both eyes. Specimens were sent for microbiology and autoimmune screening, and he was treated empirically. You can imagine that one eye had already perforated, so we started him on topical lubricants, topical antibiotics, and we started M45 therapy because it already perforated. But as I said earlier, if it's just a slight peripheral ulcer, you don't, and which is looking very clean, you don't have to give fortified antibiotics straight away. It's a question of whether you're treating a supposed infection or whether it's a preventive dose. And along with that, we gave doxycycline and ciprofloxacin because of the perforation. It's a broad spectrum oral antibiotic, and subsequently the investigations came back as some derangement of liver function, low hemoglobin. This could all be consistent with the poor nutrition associated with chronic alcoholism. And under infectious causes, our first possibility was tuberculosis, because that is something that is more commonly seen. Options could have been syphilis and gonorrhea, but that was not high up in our mind because the investigations had turned out to be negative. In terms of the associated other, considering the posteriorly dislocated lens and the uveitis, particularly the posteriorly dislocated lens, that brought syphilis higher up in our differential diagnosis. And the chest x-ray was clear. So while we were wondering what to do, the patient actually started improving. And as you can see, there was this multifocal involvement, and the patient improved, and it was probably syphilis. The genital lesion also showed reduction in size and in duration. And on reviewing of the literature, ciprofloxacin is one of the agents to which the Treponema pallidum does respond. Traditional teaching is penicillin, but ciprofloxacin does work. So in that sense, it was serendipity that we had given him a broad spectrum antibiotic and the patient responded and he improved. So he did not even require surgical therapy. Now, coming to the next patient, 47-year-old male, he had already been diagnosed to have Sweet syndrome. Sweet syndrome is an autoimmune disease which is associated with skin manifestation of tuberculosis. But he came to us with the features of sclerokeratouveitis and secondary glaucoma. He had so initially since he was already diagnosed as Sweets, which is known to be an immune phenomenon, so we started him on topical steroids. As you can, we of course sent off the investigations for microbiology, which had turned out to be negative. Bacterial and fungal cultures were negative, but we did start the patient on empirical topical steroid as well as a broad spectrum topical antibiotic and lubricants. But the patient worsened with steroid therapy. There was a distinct worsening, as you can see. That in fact, the lesion had more yellowish look, and even the scleritis started developing the multifocal discharging sinus-like lesion which started coalescing. So since he worsened with steroid therapy, he progressed to necrotizing scleritis with a frank PUK and exudative retinal detachment. So basically it was fixed, on investigation it was, except for a positive MAN2, nothing else could be identified, but this clear history patient was started on oral ATT and he responded. So this was a little rare manifestation of ocular tuberculosis in a patient of syphilis, previous systemic tuberculosis with Sweet syndrome. So whenever you have a patient like this and you are following it up, it's very important to explain to the patient that whatever we do, come back soon within about 2 to 3 days or a week so that we can monitor the response to therapy. And the moment there is a worsening with steroids, always think of infections like fungal infections to tuberculosis and so on. Coming to the next patient, it was a 26-year-old lady who had a gradually developing whitish opacity and diminution of vision of both eyes for 5 years prior to presentation with intermittent dull pain and redness, and provisional diagnosis based on both eyes disc edema with scleral thinning with hypotony is what she had been referred to us with. So she had disc edema, scleral thinning, hypotony, she had low vision in both eyes, and the MRI brain had shown hypophysitis. The reason she had the MRI brain is because of the disc edema. There was a suspicion that could be papilledema, so they had done a routine brain scan and that had shown hypophysitis. And on investigation, there was no clear-cut systemic disease which was identified, so it was felt to be a non-ulcerative perilimbal keratoscleromalacia. All the investigative modalities of investigation had proved negative microbiology. So it was believed to be an idiopathic non-necrotizing scleritis with hypotenuse maculopathy. Now the question is what to do. So we have a non-immune, non-infective lesion. What do we do? So essentially, thought better wait and watch because it was too extensive, bilateral, central cornea clear, but the hypotenuse maculopathy, there were cystic spaces with uveal show in some areas, but there was a progressive worsening. The hypotenuse, earlier she had disc edema, now the hypotenuse maculopathy got worse and worse. So it was decided to do a bilateral overlay corneoscleral patch graft. So this is one thing that got left out in the previous surgical therapy. Sometimes you really don't want to open up, because if you opened up this lesion, you would not have known how would have been the extent of the defect inside and how much of the intraocular contents would be exposed. So the idea was to just put something to support all those cystic spaces which were diffusing out the fluid. So an overlay corneoscleral patch graft, this can be a little challenging. What you have to do is you have to create an edge around the lesion, and this is where I said the bevel technique is very useful, where the posterior edge of the donor tissue, you bevel it, you just thin it in just manually to thin it down so that you can comfortably tuck it into the pocket that you have created all around the lesion. Coming to a case of other cases of corneal melting, this is what Lomi had shown already earlier. Here I would just say that in cases like this, ideally it is recommended that you put air into the AC, you separate the iris and so on. But sometimes it is good just to put something, let it heal, and then take care of the peripheral anterior synechia, etc. later on. So this is an additional thing that you could consider, because in the process, if it's been for a long time, there's a very extensive iris prolapse, and if you enter the AC and start releasing the iris, sometimes there may be excessive bleeding, there may be excessive iris being very edematous, there may be excessive iris tearing and so on. So this is also a safe option, that at that time the important thing is to get to heal, stabilize, and the later more intraocular interventions can be taken handle later on. That is the only purpose of showing this, that in such cases don't hesitate to just do a patch, just stabilize the eye and then proceed further. And one thing more is glue assisted patch can also be very useful. So here again, as I said, you can take a call whether you really want to go into the AC and relieve the iris. Sometimes if it's very peripheral, it seems as if that is going to do badly, but you just apply the patch, let the eye heal up, and it heals up pretty well on its own with a small peripheral anterior synechia. So you have to balance, whether you really need to go into the AC, because entering the AC, there's another risk of further problems, and sometimes you can even lead to, you have to see, as I said, that is an option. So here this is a glue assisted patch graft, and particularly if the lesion is very close to the central cornea, it's very, very useful to do a glue assisted lamellar surgery. So this is the example of the patient and how the patient did post-operatively very well. So fibrin glue assisted lamellar patch graft is another very good temporizing measure, and of course you can see depending upon the clinical scenario. So sutureless patch graft for sterile corneal melts. This was published in 2010. So surgical treatment, you'll go according to the extent, etc. And as I showed you with few examples, there can be variation. So additional thing I'd like to say, don't hesitate to do an onlay graft, and don't hesitate sometimes to just stabilize the eye before going for any definitive procedures later on. So there's a therapeutic as well. Now, so photograph, ASOCT, and in vitro confocal microscopy, in vivo confocal microscopy can be very useful imaging modalities. I'll give you another example. This is the case which Dr. Lomi had mentioned. 13-year-old lady. I just want to show you the rare conditions that come, and how when you see a patient, you have to sometimes take decisions which may not be as per the book. So she came with bilateral diminution of vision associated with redness, pain, photophobia, lid swelling, and purulent discharge of only 10 days duration. Out of this, 9 days, also she had noticed ulcers in the oral mucosa, scalp, hand, foot, and genitalia. She had been seen elsewhere and had been suspected to have gonococcal mucopurulent conjunctivitis, treated with topical and oral antibiotics, but she showed no improvement whatsoever. The only thing I want to emphasize here is, do take a careful history. Do listen to what the patient is saying. Don't discard it that you know best. So because that little history of what the patient has taken, what the patient has experienced, and what has been done is very useful when you decide your next steps. So considering the severity of the lesions, these were the kind of lesions she had when she presented to us, and it was only a short history of 10 days with the eye and 9 days with these lesions. So it was a very sort of frightening situation. She had vision of 612 in the right eye, left eye only hand movements, there was lid edema, there was diffuse congestion, mucopurulent discharge, and so on. So we had to take the patient to the OT for an EUA. An examination showed a 360-degree marginal ulcer in the left eye. There was also nasal symblephron, and central cornea was clear. There was evidence of scleral melt, and the AC was irregular, and iris prolapse was noted. And so the patient, this is what the right eye looked like. As you can see, there was a lot of mucopurulent discharge and inflammatory membrane formation, and the patient was then taken up for surgery. While being prepared for surgery, all the investigations were done, all the consultations were sent, and everything came as negative. So treatment was empirically with broad spectrum topical fortified and oral antibiotics, because sometimes microbiology, you feel that, oh, sometimes the specimen was not taken properly, and the way it was looking so infective. And dermatology and immunology consultation was started, and it was considered to be Behçet's. So started on Dapsone, Azoran, and Visalone. And so this is how the patient looked initially after the first surgery. And post-op day, the eye was stabilized, the sutures were intact, and so on. 4 days later, she developed this peripheral ulcerative lesion in the other eye. for which now we started topical steroid. But by then we knew that it was an immune inflammatory disease. And then on 8-day post-op, she came with a wound gaping again at 11 and 1 o'clock position in the left eye. As you can see, if you remember the video, a corneal graft had been put peripheral to the scleral graft. And so that was done. And then a resurgery was done very nicely by Dr. Lomi. He did the resurgery. A repeat patch graft under GA was done. And post-operatively, the vision in this eye was 5/60, accurate projection. And this is what the patient looks like. And as he mentioned, the patient is doing well 5 years after surgery on a very low dose. One last case I'd like to share with you, which has again been very, very difficult for us to manage. Again, Lomi and I took care of this patient together. 64-year-old lady who was well educated, working at an NGO. She had gone to several hospitals and she was known diabetic, hypertensive, had COVID in 2020. She had mild symptoms not associated with any eye problems. She then had to be admitted in Vellore for evaluation for a pyrexia of unknown origin, and she was very well taken care of by that institute. It's just that she lived in Delhi, so she came to Delhi subsequently. So she had moved to Delhi. She had loose stools, skin rashes, small joint arthralgia, red eyes, and subcentric lymphadenopathy of the right subclavicular lymph nodes and mild hepatosplenomegaly. Differential diagnosis with an autoimmune disorder, sarcoidosis, and lymphoma. There was already a previous history of ATT. So she'd already been treated with ATT before that, and she improved and completed the course of treatment for 9 months. But again, she was admitted with diagnosis of episcleral nodules. So now she had the eye involvement in the form of episcleral nodules. Again, the differential was autoimmune or tuberculosis related. She was started on topical steroids. Initially, she showed some response, but there was no complete resolution of symptoms. And this is what she came to us with. There was congestion with nodular lesions. And there were nodular lesions. The eye was red and inflamed. And whenever we see this nodular lesion, the sclera, we always think of a systemic disease. So we again did the routine, as you know now, the drill, the conjunctival swab. We even did a conjunctival biopsy, and that surprisingly showed cryptococcus. She had orbital and preseptal thickening present. Then again, we were at a loss as to what to do, so we treated her with topical amphotericin, oral antifungals, and then next one grew chlamydia. For that, she was treated with a tablet, doxycycline and azithral, and then she kept going up and down with a congestion, nodular surface, epithelial defect coming on and off. There were and then she was showing. Then she came with this PUK. So it was again very difficult what to do. We started her on topical steroids. She would have waxing and waning, topical lubricants, and then this terrible epitheliopathy. It was so difficult to treat, and her inflammatory markers were raised, were grossly elevated, PET, borderline enlarged supraclavicular lymph nodes. Bone marrow biopsy was also done, again to see there was hidden tuberculosis. Nothing came out. The C-reactive protein, the rheumatoid factor, they were abnormal. And then oral and topical steroids were then started. We felt that we had, and here this is one of the cases where we were told that you have to decide. This is that one patient where I started her initially. I think I started her on methotrexate, but she didn't improve along with the oral steroids. But sorry, I was the one who started her on methotrexate with oral steroids, and she showed improvement. So the clinical pictures post-treatment, this is how she did. And we also looked for varicella zoster, and to add in investigations, you have to also look for HCV, HIV, and HBS antigen in such cases, and all of that came negative. She had multiple episodes of acute necrotizing nodular keratouveitis recurrences coming off. So then we shifted to the cyclophosphamide. This is what I was mentioning, that we shifted to this intermittent cyclophosphamide pulse therapy. But she worsened again. She presented with MELT, and the tectonic PK with AMG had to be done. Genetic analysis was advised. And this is how she came eventually. Had severe skin involvement, necrotizing, loss of the lids, and then finally a genetic evaluation was advised. This is a situation where, and she was so sick that we had to do initially just amniotic membrane under topical anesthesia. That was just to save the eye, and subsequently coming on and off. And then finally, we got a diagnosis based on the genetic analysis, organ-specific autoimmune vasculitis. And the patient was started on adalimumab of subcutaneous injection, and she was getting severe complications with all the steroids, and now she is very stable, reached to a level of only requiring 2.5 milligram of prednisolone per day. Her eyes are now very quiet, and the plan is then to go for symblepharon release and see what we can do later on. So with that, I'd like to show you that they're all rare cases, and sometimes you just don't know what to do. But with that, I would like to thank all my co-instructors for and all the people who have been in this journey for looking